I never thought it would end like this. He walked among predators with complete trust. For years, he called them his daughters, gentle giants, hand-raised from birth. But one quiet morning in South Africa, the unimaginable happened. Two white lionesses turned on their longtime caretaker. In mere moments, the man who had dedicated his life to saving big cats was fatally mauled by the very animals he had sworn to protect. This is the horrifying final chapter in the life of West Matthew, the Lion Whisperer. Welcome to today's documentary, The Terrifying Final Moments of Matthew West. We'll explore in detail the shocking events of that tragic morning in Hoedspruit, the warnings that were ignored, and the heartbreaking decision made afterward. You'll hear how one man's love for wild animals became his downfall, and why his story is a wake-up call for anyone who believes lions can truly be tamed. If you're interested in real encounters with animals, tragic wildlife stories, and the harsh lessons they teach us, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now let's begin. West Matthew wasn't just a man who loved lions. In South Africa's Limpopo province, he was something of a legend. At 69, West had spent decades in conservation, managing a private sanctuary known as the Lion Lodge in the Trees, just outside the bush-filled town of Hoedspruit. Locals simply called him Uncle West. Situated on a private ranch near the famous Kruger National Park, the lodge was more than a retreat. It was a haven. West's mission was to provide a safe space for big cats rescued from canned hunting operations and exploitation. But he didn't just feed them from behind fences. He walked among them. Each morning, before the African sun burned away the mist, West would take two white lionesses, Tina and Mona, for walks. He had raised them since cubhood, bottle-fed them, and believed they had completely adapted to human presence. To him, they weren't dangerous, they were daughters. People watched in awe as the elderly man strolled calmly beside the massive cats, sometimes even touching noses with them. He believed in relationships built on trust, not dominance. His confidence was absolute. According to neighbors, these were not wild predators to West, they were family. At the Treetop Lodge, guests stayed in stilted cabins and dined under the stars, watching lions behind fences. Marketed as a luxury eco-lodge, the true draw was the chance to witness a man walking freely with apex predators. Over time, this spectacle became its main attraction. Tourists uploaded videos. News outlets covered the man who shared his life with lions. But behind the admiration and respect, there were murmurs of concern. Some questioned the safety of these routines. Others asked, where's the line between wild animal and companion? Still, every morning, without fail, West would open the gate to the enclosure, call Tina and Mona, and step into their world. He did this hundreds of times, until the morning of August 26, 2020, when everything changed. 3 years before the fatal attack, in 2017, the Treetop Lodge experienced a disturbing incident that many saw as a warning. It happened in the same enclosure. One of the white lionesses, either Tina or Mona, attacked a lodge worker during cleaning. The man suffered serious injuries. Full details were never released, but emergency services were called. He survived, but bore deep physical and emotional scars. Local authorities launched an investigation, and animal protection organizations took notice. They issued stern warnings. No matter how tame a lion may seem, it remains a wild predator. In a public statement, a South African wildlife official said bluntly, "Even lions raised on a bottle do not lose their instincts. There is no such thing as a safe lion." Animal rights groups echoed the concern. Organizations like the National Council of Sabika warned that West's close contact blurred the line between human and beast. A widely quoted phrase spread through South African media: "These lions may appear tame, but their primal instincts remain. A danger never disappears." For many in the conservation world, the 2017 incident was a red flag waving in plain sight. But inside the gates of the lodge, West saw things differently. To him, the attack was a rare accident, a moment of misunderstanding, not malice. He insisted the lions weren't to blame. Calm and composed, he told friends and family that the animals had likely been agitated or scared that day. It wasn't aggression, it was confusion. His faith never wavered. He continued his morning walks, continued to open the gates, continued to enter the enclosure with total trust. Family members expressed concern. Some urged him to change his habits. But West didn't listen. As far as he was concerned, Tina and Mona were his girls. He believed they would never harm him because they never had. But that belief, however sincere, was soon to be tested in the most tragic way imaginable. It was the morning of August 26, 2020. The sun had just begun to slowly rise over the acacias, surrounding the outskirts of Hazyview. The air was fresh, still cool after the night, and the only sounds were distant bird calls and the soft rustling of paws on the ground. Around 7 a.m., West Matthew opened the familiar gates to the Lion Lodge enclosure among the treetops, just as he had done hundreds of times before. On the other side, eagerly waiting for him were his white lionesses, Tina and Mona, muscular, powerful, and restless as always. West carried no weapon, used no tranquilizers, not even a stick, only his voice and confidence. He quietly called to them, and they followed him. The three walked along a dusty path that led from the lodge, one of their usual walking routes. The bush was thick in some areas and open in others. For West, this was just another morning in his private world, a routine walk with the animals he had raised and loved. But he wasn't completely alone. His wife, Gil Matthew, followed behind in a vehicle just a few meters away, as she often did. It was a safety measure, though West rarely deemed it necessary. Gil watched from the car. Her husband walked calmly. The lionesses brushed against his side. Everything seemed normal, until it wasn't. Suddenly, Tina and Mona stopped. They turned sharply, in perfect coordination and instinct, and in a blink, the calm morning was shattered. Both lionesses pounced on West. Gil watched in horror as her husband was knocked to the ground by the same two lionesses who just minutes before had affectionately touched his hands. Now they tore into him with terrifying force. There was no hesitation or pause, only fury. The sounds were primal. Growls, jaws snapping, bodies thrashing in the dust. Gil screamed and rushed to call for help. She radioed staff, called emergency services, did everything she could. But by the time help arrived, it was too late. West Matthew lay motionless on the path, his body mutilated beyond recognition. Paramedics confirmed death at the scene. The cause was clear: massive bites, multiple traumas, catastrophic blood loss. It had all happened in minutes. Witnesses described the scene as chaotic and unbearable. The path he once proudly walked was now soaked in blood and scattered with tufts of white fur. And the two lionesses, his pride and joy, stood nearby, eerily calm after the attack, as if the violence had been inevitable. Later that day, a family friend said, they loved him, and then they killed him. The man who once claimed lions could be trusted had been destroyed by the very creatures he raised to love him. In the end, there were no warning growls, no second chances, only instinct and death. In the days following the deadly attack at the Treetop Lion Lodge, investigators examined every detail, trying to find out why Tina and Mona, lionesses West had raised since they were cubs, fed from a bottle, and walked with daily, had suddenly turned on him. There was no obvious reason. Officials confirmed there had been no food on the trail that day, no aggression. West hadn't yelled, provoked, or stumbled. According to Gil Matthew, it happened instantly, without warning, and without cause. So what went wrong? One theory suggested that the lionesses, then 5 years old, had reached full sexual maturity. In the wild, lions at that age begin asserting territorial dominance. And although West was their caretaker, he may have also been seen as an outsider in territory that had, in their minds, shifted, without anyone realizing it. Another theory pointed to the realities of captivity. The years West spent walking the delicate line between man and beast could not fully override animal nature. Experts warned that decades of bonding might not erode trust from the human side, but it could from the animal side. In rare and tragic cases, the psychological lines between play, dominance, and violence blur, and chaos follows. Some speculated that a sudden movement, a stumble, or even a moment of vulnerability, such as turning his back, could have triggered a primal response. Two apex predators bonded more to each other than to any human, acting on pure instinct. But for West's family, no explanation could soften the blow. In a heartbreaking decision, made just days after the attack, the Matheson family agreed to euthanize Tina and Mona. The lions were destroyed on sight with the approval of wildlife authorities and experts. In a statement, the family expressed grief not only for the loss of West, but also for what had to be done to the animals he loved most. "It was the hardest decision we've ever had to make," one relative said quietly. "But we couldn't risk them hurting someone else, even professionals. West would never have wanted anyone to be harmed." And just like that, the lions who once symbolized love, loyalty, and awe disappeared along with the man who believed they would never hurt him. 3 lives ended that day on a dusty trail in Limpopo. 1 by choice, 2 as a result of tragedy. And the question why may forever remain without a full answer. In the hours following the death of Wes Matheson, the quiet bushveld of Limpopo fell into silence. The lion lodge nestled in the treetops, once alive with the soft growls of white lions and the whispers of curious tourists, immediately ceased all operations. Gates were locked, the trails emptied. For the first time in years, no one walked with lions. The Limpopo Department of Economic Development, Environment and Tourism launched a full-scale investigation into the incident. But beyond the immediate tragedy, a firestorm of public outrage erupted, spreading far beyond South Africa. Animal rights activists and conservationists around the world reacted with shock and fury. Social media exploded with angry posts. Statements poured in from organizations like the IFAW and the Born Free Foundation, condemning not only the incident itself, but the entire practice of keeping big cats in captivity for private use. Critics argued that West's death was not an accident, but the consequence of a broken system. South African law permits private ownership and breeding of lions under licenses issued to hunting farms. On paper, it's legal. In practice, many consider it deeply unethical. Conservation advocates accused private lodges of exploiting exotic animals for tourism profits, while ignoring their long-term welfare. West Matheson's story became the face of this debate. Though no one doubted his intentions, his love for lions was unquestionable. Many experts insisted that love cannot replace safety. Even lions raised with care remain wild animals, not pets. Just days later, headlines around the world asked the same question. Should anyone be walking with lions at all? Some condemned the practice entirely. Others pointed to the lack of unified regulations between provinces. The incident exposed gaps in licensing, inspection protocols, and the blurry line between conservation and entertainment. In Limpopo, the mood was more sorrowful than outraged. Locals remembered West as Uncle West, a quiet man who deeply loved and believed in harmony between man and beast. Friends, family, and former guests shared memories online of unforgettable moments spent near the lions he raised. His wife, Gil Matthew, released a brief statement to the press. He died doing what he loved. But it should not have ended this way. That single sentence captured the complexity of the tragedy. A life devoted to lions, a death that shattered the fragile trust between human and predator, and the haunting question that still lingers over the lodge he left behind. West Matthew dedicated his life to proving that humans and lions could coexist, not from a distance, but through close, meaningful connection. But love for an apex predator doesn't erase its danger. Lions are not dogs. They do not forget their wild instincts. No matter how many years pass, how gentle the walks, or how routine the feedings, a predator's nature can ignite in an instant. Captivity may dull their reactions, but it doesn't erase their biology. On August 26, 2020, around 7 a.m., on a familiar dusty trail behind the Treetop Lion Lodge in Limpopo, two white lionesses, Tina and Mona, turned on the man who had raised them since they were cubs. In seconds, trust built over years was destroyed. Gil Matthew, his wife, watched in horror from a vehicle, helpless as the lions pulled West to the ground. Their instincts outweighed every bond that had once existed. By the time rescuers arrived, it was too late. He was already gone. To many, those final minutes served as a chilling reminder. No matter how strong the bond between human and beast, nature is never fully tamed. Yet West wasn't naive. He understood the risks, and still he walked with them, because to him, they were family. In the end, it was that very trust, the defining belief of his life, that cost him everything. West Matthew died doing what he loved. But perhaps the real question now is, was he blinded by that love to the truth? If you found this story shocking, please like the video, subscribe to our channel so you don't miss future documentaries about real animal attacks, and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. We release new documentaries daily, exploring the wild edge between man and nature, and how that boundary can sometimes turn deadly. And we want to hear from you. Do you think wild predators should ever be kept as pets? Should private ownership of lions be allowed at all? Leave your thoughts in the comments. These were the horrifying final moments of West Matthew. Thank you for watching, and stay with us.